It was only then that I learned that my daughter had committed suicide due to depression. She had been bullied at school all along. Those two wretched girls beat and cursed her every day. For no reason at all, they just thought my daughter was easy to bully. Later, when the matter could no longer be concealed, they merely wrote an apology letter. They said in a sneering manner, "At most, we won't beat her anymore. What else do you want us to do? I don't want an apology. I just want those two wretched girls to die." When I saw my daughter, she was almost beaten beyond recognition. Her hair was matted together, and her body was covered in bruises and bloodstains from cigarette burns. I couldn't believe that the daughter I had sent to school in good health in the morning was now covered in blood. She was lying in the emergency room, with tubes inserted all over her body and an oxygen mask on. Her injuries were severe. She had a perforated eardrum, and there was a wound on her head approximately 7 to 8 centimeters wide and 5 centimeters long. The doctor frowned and said, "During the CT scan, we also found a shard of glass inserted into the patient's brain." My chest ached as if weighted down, and I gritted my teeth. "Can it be removed?" I asked, trying to control myself. "I can't promise you that," the doctor said, glancing into the ward. Her condition was rather critical, and the craniotomy took 5 hours. The operation didn't end until the early morning of the next day. Although the operation was successful, however, a small part of the glass shard in Yanyan's brain remained, and subsequent surgeries were still awaited. During the second stage operation, the police showed me a short video found on the phone of the person who had harmed my daughter. In the video, my daughter stood in a corner of the classroom, with her hair in disarray and looking at a loss. A girl slapped my daughter and then kicked her to the ground. Another girl quickly added a few kicks, causing her to hunch over like a blind person. They then forced her to kneel on the ground, grabbed her hair, and compelled her to raise her head. One slap after another landed on her face. The loud slapping sounds mixed with the jeering laughter. "Take off her clothes. Why is she so wretched? So obedient. I'll beat you every time I see you. I know where your home is. I won't let you go." In the shaky camera shot, a girl somehow took a triangular ruler made of tempered glass. In my daughter's terrified and trembling gaze, she smashed it hard towards my daughter's head. The moment the video ended, I only wanted to kill. I wanted to kill those two little wretches. The triangular ruler made of tempered glass was directly smashed towards my daughter's head. Such cruelty, such viciousness, and they had no scruples at all. Evidently, this level of violence, the wanton humiliation and bullying of my daughter, was not the first time. At school I saw those two girls. They stood idly in the corner. Their faces were full of defiance. Opposite my daughter's head teacher sat a middle-aged man and a woman. They kept saying to my daughter's head teacher things like, "They're just kids. I can't control her." Those two little wretches then admitted on the spot the fact that they had beaten my daughter. As for the reason, they just didn't like the look of her. The girl on the left complained, "So annoying. All they know is to call the parents." I remembered her. She was the girl in the video who took the lead in beating my daughter and smashing her with the triangular ruler made of tempered glass. The middle-aged woman beside her tugged at her clothes. "Shawan, how do you talk? Apologize to the uncle. Say you won't do it again. Be more polite." She sneered and raised her head provocatively. "Sorry. I promise I won't beat her anymore. Okay. So much trouble." Then she looked at the police officer beside her. "Can I go now?" "Where are you going?" the police officer asked. She gave me a sidelong glance. "Go and slap that bitch twice. I haven't hit her yet today. Let her keep her mouth shut." I immediately flew into a rage, flipped over the sofa and kicked her flying. I kicked her head again, splattering her face with blood. The other wretched girl who was about to come forward to stop me was grabbed by the hair and slammed into the table. My eyes were blood red. I stepped on the mop in the corner and broke it in two, then picked up the stick. I swung it at the leading girl with all my might. She howled like crazy from being beaten by me. She curled up on the ground, and her mother rushed over hysterically to scratch my face. I kicked her in the stomach, grabbed her hair and dragged her to the ground. She reached out to block me and I swung the stick onto her arm. She let out continuous screams. The remaining middle-aged man took the opportunity to kick me in the back and punched me in the face. The stinging pain from the nosebleed made my eyes turn blood red. I lunged at him and knocked him down with a punch. I grabbed his head and smashed it hard on the floor. "Help! Help!" The leading girl cried out and crawled towards the door. I rushed over and gave her a flying kick. I kicked her against the wall in the corridor and then dragged her back. I punched her face again and again on the ground. "Stop him! Quick, stop him!" the middle-aged woman shrieked. The police officer cast a sidelong glance at her. "Aren't we trying?" When they were collecting evidence, they had also watched that video and knew how vicious these two little wretches were. So they only made a token effort to pull me back. It was not until they saw me grabbing the other girl's head and slamming it towards the table corner that they pinned me down. The older police officer frowned, looking at me and then at the severely beaten girl on the ground, but remained silent. The parent got up from the ground, stood behind the police officer, and pointed at me viciously. "I'll kill you." I spat out the blood foam in my mouth and glared at him ferociously. "You'd better keep your word. If you don't kill me, I'll definitely kill this little wretch." From the very beginning, I had no intention of negotiating with them, let alone giving them a chance. I came here just to firmly remember the faces of these two despicable families. The police officer, fearing that the situation would get even more serious, hastily ended this conversation and took us all back. We were interviewed separately to let both sides calm down first. During this time, the other party's parents kept shouting that they would send me to prison, saying that I had to pay the price for hitting someone. The police officer said that I had beaten the person quite severely, which could be considered a minor injury. If that was the case, even if I had it just cause, it would seem unjust. Trust the law, the police officer advised me. Their actions were extremely abominable. What will happen if things go smoothly? I asked him. They will be given admonition and psychological treatment, the police officer said, and then added, "You can ask them to bear the cost of the examination." I said, "That means they won't get any real punishment. What effect will what you mention have on them? My daughter was beaten like that, and all they have to do is say a few insincere I'm sorry's, right?" Seeing his silence, I said calmly, "Okay, I understand." In the lobby, I saw the other party's parents again. Perhaps the police had done some work. Determining a minor injury requires following procedures, and since the other party had bullied my daughter first, they didn't dare to make a big fuss. So, they no longer shouted that they would have me shot, but instead proposed that I pay 50,000 yuan to reach a settlement with them. I said, "Settlement? Damn it." The middle-aged woman pointed at me. "Don't be ungrateful. 50,000 yuan is already a small amount. Look at what you've done to my daughter." The police officer couldn't stand it anymore. "Well, what about the other girl? That girl is still lying in the hospital. That's a matter between kids. Besides, no matter what my daughter did, is it his turn to hit her? Who does he think he is?" The middle-aged woman snorted. "Rude. I think he deserved it. Why did my daughter hit your daughter and not others? Isn't it because she's wretched?" Slap. I slapped her across the face, making her mouth bleed. The two police officers couldn't stop me. I grabbed her hair and pressed her head onto the table, slapping her until her mouth was full of blood. When I was pulled away, the middle-aged woman covered her mouth and shouted, "Arrest him! Arrest him!" The police officer glanced at the bleeding scratch marks on me and said indifferently, "I only saw a mutual brawl." The middle-aged woman glared at the police officer viciously. "Are you in cahoots with him? Do you know who I am?" After roaring for a while, seeing the police officer's gloomy face, she realized she had said the wrong thing. Then she said to me, "You wait. Don't think this is over." With that, she took the girl whose face was covered in blood from my beating and walked out of the police station. I picked up a brick and followed that little wretch. Just as I was about to rush up and smash her with it, my phone rang. It was my wife calling, saying that Nian had woken up. I hurriedly rushed back to the hospital and only saw 4 or 5 people in the corridor. They were all teachers from the school, and Nian's head teacher was also there. They were holding my wife down and forcing her to sign a piece of paper. Damn it. Let her go. I looked around but couldn't find anything handy, so I picked up the iron infusion stand next door and smashed it down on the head of the person in the front. He fell to the ground, clutching his head in pain. When the others tried to come forward, I swung it around, almost breaking someone's leg. "Get out of here. Take one more step and I'll kill you all." Everyone was stunned in place, hesitant to move forward. I saw that the head teacher looked very guilty and was hiding the paper in her hand behind her back. I walked over and snatched it. To my surprise, it was a letter of understanding. Damn this bitch. She actually brought so many people to force my wife to sign a letter of understanding. Fuck. I slapped her, but unfortunately she dodged. The head teacher hid far away from me and shouted, "What are you doing? What's wrong with this parent? The kids are naive, but are you naive too? Do you know that this matter has seriously affected the school's reputation? As long as you sign this letter of understanding, we promise not to hold the school and the other party accountable. We will handle this properly for you." My wife was so angry that she was shaking all over. "You're just afraid of taking responsibility. When Nian was brought to the hospital, you kept stopping the doctor from examining Nian, asking them to bandage her directly. At the hospital entrance, 7 or 8 of you held me down on the ground, snatched my phone, and wouldn't let me see my daughter. You even tried to force me out of the hospital. At that time I begged you, bowing and kowtowing, to give me back my phone, but no one paid any attention to me. It was only when a passerby said they would call the police that yellow-haired teacher gave my phone back to me. Until now, the school hasn't given any response, and you still say that we've affected the school's reputation. Today, you also wanted to send me away and secretly transfer Nian to another place." As my wife was accusing them, the head teacher just stood there, smiling contemptuously. From the very beginning, the school had tried to handle this matter as a minor accident. But unexpectedly, my daughter's injuries became more and more serious, and they had no choice but to notify the parents. Even now, the school was still trying to downplay this matter. The most obvious thing was that they had deleted the surveillance footage. They were deliberately covering up for those 2 little wretches. The day my daughter was sent to the hospital, if I hadn't insisted on doing a CT scan first and stopped the school from making the decision to suture the wound first, with such a large shard of glass left in her brain, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Looking at the head teacher's appearance, I was so angry that I was shaking all over. I grabbed her collar and slapped her across the face. Immediately the corridor was in chaos again with shouts and noises. When the security guard stopped me, that bitch was already kneeling on the ground from my beating. Just as I was about to drag her into the toilet to beat her some more, my wife came out of the ward. I asked her, "Did Nyan say anything?" My wife looked grief-stricken. Before she could speak, tears fell again. She covered her face. The girl said that when she was living in the school dormitory, those two girls beat her almost every day. I clenched my fists tightly. For no reason at all, those two little wretches had insulted and beaten her just for fun. Later, when my daughter summoned up the courage to tell the teacher not only didn't stop it but instead called Nyan out alone and criticized her. So seeing that no one was stopping them, they intensified their actions and started the endless bullying. Day after day they beat and insulted her, and even forced my daughter to drink. My fingernails dug deep into my palm due to excessive force. These two little wretches told her that they would beat her every time they saw her, wherever she was. They also said that if she dared to run away, they would go and beat her parents. My girl had to endure so much fear and humiliation every day. I felt extremely guilty and almost hated to the point of crushing my joints. How hopeless she must have felt. Because the other party had power and influence, she was afraid that her parents would be retaliated against. So she didn't dare to tell us at home and could only endure the hell-like suffering alone. My wife handed me a piece of paper with a trembling hand. On the paper my daughter had written crookedly, "I want to die. They won't let me go. Yes, they will bully me for a lifetime." Just then my phone buzzed. It was a message sent by the head teacher in the parents group. "Dear parents, please don't forward improper messages. The two families are properly resolving the issue, but the parent is not satisfied and is causing trouble at the school, talking nonsense and even using violence, which has had a negative impact on the school. Please cooperate, parents, and don't forward randomly, or you will be held legally accountable." Below, the parents of those two little wretches replied, "Well said, teacher. We must arrest him." I believe my daughter wouldn't hit someone casually. My daughter said that she hit her because she was being wretched. Later, the parent of the girl who took the lead in beating my girl said another sentence. Although he withdrew it quickly, I still saw the content. He said that as long as my girl wasn't a murderer of her parents, he could take care of it. The head teacher added, "Please parents, don't spread rumors or create rumors. No one has been bullied. This is all the personal behavior of the parent, deliberately targeting the school and slandering classmates." After reading the message, I made an excuse to go out to buy cigarettes. I told myself that my daughter could live without a father, but she couldn't live without dignity. At the entrance of the inpatient department, I called my brother Zhao Hu. When he was young, he was hot-headed and got into a lot of trouble. In the early days, I had helped him. His family had quite a few elderly people. Later, he contracted projects in the development zone and rose to the top with his toughness. He was very resourceful. Soon Zhao Hu's voice came from the other end of the phone. "Is Nyan feeling better?" I gave a hum and paused. "It's time." "Okay," Zhao Hu sneered. "Brother, I'll definitely make these two little wretches wish they were dead. I'll skin these two beasts alive." I said. "Besides these two little wretches, there's one more person who should be most responsible for this matter and should pay the price." He asked. "Oh? That surnamed Wang, Nyan's head teacher." I gritted my teeth. Yes. When I saw Zhao Hu, he had brought quite a few people, all with fierce looks on their faces. They clearly looked like troublemakers. A little after 8 o'clock outside the school, I waited for my daughter's head teacher. As he walked, he was sending messages in the parents group. "Dear parents, don't create or spread rumors. Let's work together to maintain the school's reputation. It's the other parent who is talking nonsense and spreading false information everywhere. Things are not as he said at all." I called him from behind. "Mr. Wang." He was puzzled. "Who's that?" Before he could turn around, I kicked him hard on the back, pinned his head to the ground, and smashed it down again and again. Grasping his hair, I forced him to raise his head and slapped him wildly. The resounding slaps made his mouth bleed, and saliva mixed with blood dripped down. When he recognized me, his face contorted with malice, and he struggled to stand up. Two of Zhao Hu's men came over and pinned him to the ground. I picked up a rubber stick and swung it hard at his stomach. Then, grabbing his hair, I dragged him for more than 10 meters on the ground. His knees and hands were abraded, and his face was covered with dust and blood. Looking at his sorry state, I felt no mercy. I slapped him across the mouth and said, "Speak! Weren't you so good at distorting the truth?" At this moment, he lost his previous arrogance and haughtiness and knelt on the ground, begging me to let him go. The head teacher cried out with a pitiful look. "I really didn't know about this. If I had known, I would have expelled them long ago." I slapped him on the mouth. The children in the class all knew. As the head teacher, how could you not know? His eyes darted around. "Damn you!" I swung a stick at him and he fell to the ground in pain. "Why didn't you do anything?" I swung another stick. He was in too much pain to speak and clung to my trouser leg, shaking his head desperately. I kicked him over, grabbed his hair and questioned, "Why did you criticize my daughter when those two little wretches beat her? Was it because those two had power and influence and you were afraid to offend them?" "Kneel down," I said. He looked up at me in a panic. I kicked him on the head. "Kneel down." I made him kneel on the ground and asked, "Am I talking nonsense? Am I hitting people without discrimination? Did you handle this properly? Was my daughter supposed to be beaten? Don't spread rumors, right? I'm asking you. Is that right?" With each question, I slapped him as hard as I could. He knelt there disheveled with his left and right cheek swollen from my slaps, and kept kowtowing, crying, "I was wrong. With a gloomy face, I slapped him one last time and knocked him over. Remember, if I hear you spouting nonsense again, I'll break your legs. Then Zhao Hu patted me, indicating that he would handle it. I only saw him walk up to the head teacher with a smile, lower his head and say a few words to him. Then the head teacher's eyes panicked, and he took a few steps back, nodding repeatedly. After getting in the car, I asked him, "What did you say to him?" Zhao Hu laughed and said, "Nothing much. Just sent my regards to his whole family." Later I learned that the head teacher didn't call the police that night, because Zhao Hu had revealed his home address, and where his child went to school. So he also had a child and he was also afraid that something would happen to his child. How ironic. On the way, one of Zhao Hu's younger brothers called and said that they had found the girl who had beaten my daughter. Since my daughter started living in the dormitory, she had been bullied by Li Wan, a classmate. Later, another girl, Xiabalian, joined in the bullying of my daughter to curry favor with Li Wan. When I arrived, Xiabalian was drinking in a bar, her face red. She was bragging about herself to the people around her with her phone in hand. She said with a look of contempt, "Even if he has the guts to pursue this, I'll beat him to death. You watch. When this dies down, I'll still beat him every day." She opened her phone, and in the video my daughter was kneeling on the ground, and she slapped her one after another. Look at her pathetic look. The more I look, the angrier I get. Why is she so wretched? The people around laughed nonstop. "You're really ruthless. Slapping her in the face. What's this? You haven't seen her slap herself. Let me find it for you." Her face was swollen from slapping, and she was still begging me to let her go. Is that possible? I kicked her and she fell to the ground. As Xiabalian spoke, she started rummaging through her phone again. The guy next to her laughed and said, "She's not bad looking. Why don't you let me have some fun with her?" "Sure. I'll call her over later. She'll definitely be obedient. You can do whatever you want to her." After the girl finished speaking, someone patted her from behind. She waved her hand impatiently. Bang! Zhao Hu's brother pressed her head and smashed it hard on the table. She let out a scream and blood gushed out. The guy sitting at the same table cursed, "Fuck." As he just stood up, he was hit on the head with a wine bottle. Without me having to signal, Zhao Hu's brothers rushed up and beat him. They dragged him into the toilet like a dead dog. The girl was stunned. Before she could come to her senses, she was dragged by her hair from the bar into a private room. Zhao Hu gave a wink to the bar owner, who understood immediately and laughed obsequiously, then closed the bar. In the private room, I looked at the girl coldly. She recognized me. At this time she was still being stubborn. "You hit me. If you hit me once, I'll hit her 10 times, 100 times. I won't say a word." A short and stocky man walked out of the shadows and came to the girl's side. He grabbed her hair, looked at me, and I lit a cigarette and handed it to him. In the girl's startled gaze, he grabbed her mouth and stuffed the cigarette in, then slapped her in the face. I could clearly see her pupils constrict from the slap, and blood trickled out of her ear. Zhao Hu's men, following the instructions, started beating her. They were ruthless. The girl was grabbed by the hair and knelt in front of me. No matter what she said, the man would slap her. After 30 slaps, she was dazed, and blood from her mouth pooled on the ground. I asked her, "Do you know you're wrong?" She didn't answer. The brother pressed her head and smashed it on the marble coffee table. "Wrong?" I asked again. Her voice was faint. "Yes, I'm wrong." She was slapped again. In pain, she reached out to cover her face, but her hands were held down. The brother picked up a pipe wrench and swung it down hard. "Ah!" The shrill scream was ear-piercing. Just as she had done to my daughter, the brother smashed her hands one by one. She lay trembling on the ground with a yellow puddle beneath her, her body twitching from time to time, and her face distorted in pain. The police arrived with Xiabalian's parents. At that time I was sitting in the private room, singing Boundless Oceans, Vast Skies. When I sang, "Forgive me for my whole life being unrestrained and loving freedom," the door of the private room was opened, and 2 old wretches and the police walked in. Seeing Xiabalian beaten like this, they rushed up, yelling that they would fight me to the death. I picked up a chair and smashed it directly on the old man in front of me, then kicked the woman in the stomach and slapped her in the face. When I was stopped by the police, the 2 old wretches had the chance to get up from the ground. They howled, wanting to fight me. I sneered. Dare to hit someone in front of the police? They gritted their teeth in anger. But when my daughter was being beaten, they said, "It's not like they did anything to her." Why were they so angry now that it was their turn? Listening to them accusing me of beating their daughter, I looked at Xiabalian, who was like a dead dog on the ground, and said, "She does look miserable. She must be wretched, right? Otherwise, why would others beat her?" Then I smiled at them. Their eyes seemed to want to kill me. I said innocently, "Officer, look, they're threatening me." Just as the police officer's face turned gloomy, the big guy who had taken action before walked in. I did it. The 2 old wretches were stunned for a moment and then looked at me. "Did you instigate it?" I ignored them and sat down on my own. The big guy insisted that he was the one who had beaten the person. As for the reason, he just looked like he needed a beating. What a good reason. Just as he was about to be taken back to the police station, the old wretch threatened, "This is serious injury. You'll be sentenced. Quickly say who instigated you." "Sentenced for what?" The big guy scratched his head, then took out a piece of paper from his back pocket. "I'm mentally ill." I laughed and everyone was dumbfounded. The big guy smiled simply. "Mentally ill? Don't you know? The kind that can kill people." Hearing that the big guy was mentally ill, the old couple took 2 steps back on the spot. Before being taken away, the mentally ill big guy coldly left a sentence. Remember, the kind that can kill people. After Zyabalian was sent to the hospital, her parents somehow found my home address. Her father and several gangsters hung around my house for 2 days, threatening to break my legs and harm my wife and daughter. The next night, I went home to pack things for my daughter to use in the hospital. The security guard called me and said that those people were here again. When I arrived at the gate of the community, sure enough, there were 7 or 8 smoking gangsters outside. I picked up a brick from the roadside and put it in my pocket, then swaggered over. The old scoundrel was squatting at the gate, smoking. When you see the person, beat him to death. I'll take the blame if anything goes wrong. What about the man? Beat him to death. And the woman? Who are you? As he looked up, I turned around and smashed a brick down on his head. He immediately hugged his head and fell into the flower bed. You know, this old guy's head was really hard. The brick broke. After hitting him, I turned around and ran into the alley. The old wretch covered his head and shouted, "I'll kill you." 7 or 8 gangsters chased after me with weapons. As they were chasing, dozens of people ran out from all directions in the alley. Zhao, who was among them, shouting the loudest, "Someone is beating people in the street. Quick, be a good Samaritan." Before the gangsters could react, he swung a stick and knocked someone to the ground. The old scoundrel was dragged to the trash can and beaten until he screamed. I took the opportunity and kicked him in the head, knocking him unconscious. In the end, the matter was determined that the other party had gathered to provoke first, and the passers-by and the masses had come forward bravely and brought the thugs to justice. Zhao, who even got the title of Good Samaritan. After that, the mentally ill big guy was released and went to the hospital to visit the old and young wretches. The old wretch was so scared that he fell off the bed, and the young wretch peed his pants on the spot, because when the mentally ill big guy went, he had a kitchen knife stuck in his waist. After all this commotion, there was only the main culprit who had taken the lead in beating my daughter left. Ironically, this perpetrator named Li Wan was actually the school's etiquette model, and a member of the school's orientation club. I originally thought she would hide, but unexpectedly, I saw her in the hospital. Just as I arrived at the door of my daughter's ward, before I even entered, I heard a voice inside. "You bitch. Don't think I won't do anything to you just because of this." Not replying to my messages. "Are you itching for a beating?" I suddenly pushed the door open. Li Wan, that little wretch, was chewing gum, grabbing my daughter's hair and was about to slap her. Without any hesitation, I rushed over and kicked her flying. Then I punched her again and dragged her into the toilet. The mop was even broken from my beating. Looking at Li Wan, who was in a pitiful state in front of the toilet, I took out my phone and called Zhao Hu, asking him to send a car over. The car stopped in an abandoned factory area. I kicked Li Wan out of the car and hung her up. She struggled in pain. I swung a pipe wrench at her, and she howled even louder. She cried and said, "Uncle, let me go. I know I'm wrong. I know I'm wrong." I swung the pipe wrench at her mouth again, and immediately her teeth mixed with blood fell out of her mouth. Her expression turned ferocious and she roared, "My dad won't let you go." I had someone let her down. She thought I was afraid and stared at me. "I'll kill your whole family." I laughed out loud and kicked her in the stomach. She knelt on the ground in pain. I grabbed her neck and threw her aside. At this time, Li Wan's phone rang. "Hello, Xiaowan. Where are you? Mom has already taken care of the transfer procedures for you. Your dad has made all the arrangements. You just need to go for 2 weeks of psychological counseling later." Xiaowan. I held the phone to Li Wan's ear and swung the pipe wrench at her. "Mom, help me." She screamed until her voice broke. I slapped her in the face with the pipe wrench again, and she screamed even more miserably. On the other end of the phone there were vicious curses shouting things like, "Kill your whole family," "Kill you," etc. Indeed, they were a family. They talked the same way. I scratched my ear and kicked Li Wan. When she howled, the person on the other end cursed even more fiercely. I said, "Deal. If you're late, you'll just come to collect this little wretch's body." The other end reacted quickly. They really doted on their daughter. Soon, her father brought a group of people to the factory area. Her father drove a Porsche. He was a rich man. No wonder he dared to say that as long as it wasn't murder, he could take care of anything. More than a dozen people walked in mightily. The man had a gloomy face, dressed like a successful person. He stood there without saying a word, looking at me coldly. I recognized the woman beside him. She was the one I had beaten before. The man must be Li Wan's father, Li Gang, a businessman. I heard he had some influence. He hadn't shown up before. As soon as the middle-aged woman got out of the car, she started shouting, "It's you again. Are you never going to stop beating my daughter? I'll kill you, you bitch." Li Wan was no longer arrogant and crawled towards her mother, crying. I stepped on her head. "Damn it." Seeing her wailing, the middle-aged woman rushed over, cursing, "Your daughter is dead. Why don't you go to the hospital to collect her body?" Before I could act, Zhao Hu picked up a steel pipe on the ground and whipped it across her face. Then, dragging her, he slapped her mouth until it was a bloody mess. Li Gang couldn't hold his temper any longer. He stepped forward, pointing at me. "Don't be ungrateful, okay? You want to fight me?" I smiled and immediately broke one of his fingers. Then I swung a pipe wrench at his face. He covered his face and howled. I said indifferently, "At first, I just wanted justice." He covered his face, hissing in pain and gritting his teeth. "Justice? You fucking don't deserve justice." The dozen or so people he brought also charged towards me. Zhao Hu took a puff of his cigarette and clapped his hands. All of a sudden, a lot of people rushed out from all directions. They were all hot-blooded and fierce, far beyond what the dozen or so security guards Li Gang had brought could match. Want to compare the number of people, huh? Zhao Hu patted Li Gang's face. Li Gang clearly showed signs of panic. Before the dozen or so security guards could do much, they were knocked to the ground, kneeling and being whipped from time to time. Li Gang was beaten black and blue and dragged out of the crowd. At first he was still standing, but I punched him and made him kneel. As I swung the pipe wrench at him, I asked, "Do I deserve justice now?" If he didn't answer, I would keep hitting him until he couldn't even open his eyes. Then he gritted his teeth and said, "Dare you let me make a call?" I licked my lips and handed him my phone. As he threatened to make me pay the price, he pressed the phone number. Unexpectedly, the phone rang on the scene. He looked over in confusion. From behind Zhao Hu, a person walked out with a nervous expression. He raised his hand and slapped Li Gang, then kicked him to the ground. "What the hell are you calling me for?" Li Gang was dumbfounded. "Brother Chong, you." Brother Chong kicked him hard. "Shut the fuck up," Zhao Hu said indifferently. "Not bad, Xiao Chong. You've grown quite capable outside, learning to back others up." Xiao Chong laughed obsequiously. "I'm not familiar with him. I've only met him twice." Li Gang still wanted to speak, but Xiao Chong slapped his mouth until it was a pulp. "Don't drag me into this, okay? You want to die, but I still want to live. How many lives do you have to oppose Brother Hu?" Li Gang trembled. "Who? Brother Hu?" Slap. Xiao Chong slapped him again. "Is that how you address Brother Hu?" "He's your father." I didn't know exactly how powerful Zhao Hu was outside. I only knew he was doing well. But when Li Gang knelt in front of Zhao Hu and called him father, I realized how ruthless Zhao Hu was. "Father, you're my real father. I was wrong. I didn't know it was you behind this. If I had known, I wouldn't have dared even if I were killed." Li Gang knelt at Zhao Hu's feet. Zhao Hu looked at me. "This is your second father. Come, call him second father." Li Gang was stunned, and the middle-aged woman trembled even more. She quickly put on a flattering smile and kept calling, "Second father, please have mercy on us and let us go." As she spoke, she looked at the little wretch. "We'll teach her a good lesson when we get back." She slapped Li Wan a few times symbolically. "Don't you say you're wrong? Say you won't dare to do it again." Li Wan seemed to think this was the end of it and quickly mumbled, "Sorry. Fuck you." I raised my foot and kicked her in the face. "You think too highly of yourself. A simple sorry, and it's all over." I swung a stick at her leg and she curled up in pain. "Was Nian Nian easy to bully? Did she deserve to be beaten by you? How could you, a student, be so vicious and treat her in such a cruel way? You beat her, cursed her, and forced her to kneel on the ground." I was so angry that I was shaking all over. I raised the pipe wrench and swung it hard, breaking her nose. Li Gang's eyes turned red. He shouted, "Come at me if you have the guts. Don't touch my daughter." I looked at him in astonishment. "Come at you? She's a child. What did she do wrong?" "Her father," Li Gang shouted. So right in front of him I broke both of Li Wan's hands. He screamed wildly, "Ah, I'll kill you. I'll kill you." I pried open Li Wan's mouth, made her bite the cement platform and stomped down hard. With a click she spat out blood with broken teeth. I gritted my teeth. "You have a daughter too. Now do you know that kind of pain?" The small quilt my wife brought back from school was covered in blood. My daughter was forced to kneel in the toilet and slap herself. She was beaten until her eardrum perforated. She endured humiliation and fear day after day. She wanted to die. I stepped on Li Wan, making her wail. I grabbed her hair and dragged her in front of Li Gang. Right in front of Li Gang, I picked up the pipe wrench, about to smash her head with it, just as she had smashed my daughter's head with a tempered glass triangular ruler. Zhao Hu reached out and stopped me, shaking his head at me. "This lesson is enough. It's not worth killing someone. Think about your wife and child." I looked at Li Wan, who was beyond recognition, and slowly dropped the pipe wrench in my hand, sitting down on the ground with a thud. "Damn it." When I returned to the hospital, I said to my wife, "I'm sorry. I'm afraid I won't be able to take care of you and Nian Nian anymore." When she saw the bloodstains on me, she immediately guessed what had happened and covered her face, crying. I stood outside the ward, looking at Nian Nian until dawn. My wife consulted a lawyer for me. The lawyer said that my actions had constituted serious injury, and now the other party wanted to hold me accountable. I would be sentenced to at least 7 years. He asked me if I regretted it. I said I had no regrets. As long as no one dared to bully my daughter anymore, that was enough. The head teacher was later exposed for covering up students and condoning bullying. He was fired by the school. I heard that his doorstep was filled with wreaths sent by netizens, and he was so angry that he had a stroke. Zaya Balian, just after being discharged from the hospital, was hacked into the hospital again by the mentally ill big guy. She had since been left with a chronic illness and became crazy. As for the main culprit, Li Wan, one of her kidneys was damaged by me, and she could only lie in bed from then on. I thought that if Li Gang had any backbone, he would definitely sue me to the end, even send me to prison or fight me to the death. But until the next night, no one came to hold me accountable. I was puzzled. Could it be that Zhao Hu had used some means? At the food stall I asked Zhao Hu, "How on earth did you make Li Gang give up?" Originally I was going to use some force, but unexpectedly, I didn't even need to step in. "That family got their retribution," Zhao Hu said. Seeing my confusion, he added, "You don't know what happened?" I asked. Zhao Hu said meaningfully, "Haven't you noticed that the Li family has been quiet now? They're not looking for you or causing trouble. It's so quiet." I exclaimed, "You didn't kill them, did you?" Zhao Hu quickly covered my mouth. "Don't talk nonsense. This is a society ruled by law. Who would still engage in violence? But then his tone changed. However, the Lee family really did die out. It's a big case that's not allowed to be reported. Anyway, no one is going to hold you accountable now. What do you think he was thinking? He's not short of that little money. He owed a worker 3,000 yuan and refused to pay. The worker went to ask for it several times and he said, "Go and sue me wherever you want," and even slapped the worker. And then? I asked. Then the matter got big. The worker found him at the hospital entrance at night and stabbed him in the stomach a few times. The Lee guy even knelt down just shouting, "I was wrong. I was wrong." But it was too late. The two women were killed on the spot, their throats slit. Just because of 3,000 yuan, the whole family was killed. Hearing this, I couldn't help but say, "What a pity. What a pity. What a pity that this worker ruined his whole life because of such a scumbag," I said. Zhao Hu was rather calm. "It happens often. Don't push an honest person too far. No matter how much money you have, you only have one life, right?" I nodded. Just as I was eating, my phone rang. I said to Zhao Hu, "Okay, that's it for today. I still have something to do." "What? Is sister-in-law urging you?" Zhao Hu asked with a smile. "It's about the child's transfer to another school. Another day, haha. Is Nian Nian okay?" He asked. "Much better. After all, Dad has regained her dignity for her," I said. Zhao Hu patted his chest. "That's good. Tell her that Dad isn't a pushover either." Then he made a gesture like making a phone call. "Call me if you have something. I won't bother with small things. I can't handle big things. Anyway, remember, call me if you have something." "Get out of here," I said, smiling. The end.